also fine. So, can you tell the rest to join? Hilary.
Yes, please.
Tell me where I've gotten to. Tell me where I've gotten to.
Please, we the how the system gets glucose. So we've spoken about intake. We are yet to look at utilization.
So tell me where I haven't done type 1. Have I done type 1 with you? I'm listening. Can you tell me?
No,
Can you
please.
run me through?
No, please.
Can you run me through? We started with what? Can you?
Please, we started with it occurs, and then we touched on the types, but you said you would delve in deeper. So we just looked at a few characteristics with respect to the how it's related to genetics, etc. Then we spoke about he gave us a question to look at. He asked what are there's a global pandemic of type 2D and what are 5 causes? And then we looked at the 5 causes. And then we moved on to the effect of insulin on carbohydrates. And then we looked at the definition of hypoglycemia being less than 3.5 millimole per liter, and then hyperglycemia being greater than 8.0 millimole per liter. And then we spoke about how and then why will a DM patient with foot ulcer be difficult to heal? Why would a foot ulcer in a DM patient be difficult to heal? And then why will a DM patient on insulin experience weight gain?
So did I do this with you? Did I do the gluconeogenesis, the metabolism pathway? What happened? In adipose tissues, what happens? Did I do it?
No, please.
So I got to, tell me, I got to where? I don't want you to lack.
Okay, the last thing we spoke about was how the system gets glucose. So we spoke about the intake mechanisms. We are led to the utilization.
So I didn't touch on the metabolism of fats, glucose, and amino acids. That is via gluconeogenesis. I didn't talk about that.
No, please.
Okay, so I said that the body is able to maintain glucose within this. The body is able to maintain glucose within this range, 3.5. I said that to 8 millimole per liter. I said this. Did I say this?
Yes, please.
And I said that this is for normal individual. And for normal individual, the body is able to maintain this sugar level within this. Please hold on for me. Hello. So the system is able to maintain the sugar level. And I say that these men, hello class, I'm starting. This is as a result for a normal individual. You can hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
Okay, so for a normal individual, the system is able to maintain this, the sugar level between 3.5 to 8. 3.5 to 8 for normal individual. And therefore, if patient without diabetes, if the person is not eating, the person will not go into hypo because the system is able to maintain sugar level between this region, 3.5 to 8. And I'm saying that the system is able to do that based upon the fact that they have two basic actions. We have the intake and we have what? The utilization. And these two simple things would help maintain the sugar level within us. So we talked about the intake. And we said that for the intake, we'll be getting food. The system will be getting glucose via the diet that we eat. The food that we eat, we talked about what? Gluconeogenesis. We talked about gluconeogenesis. Mm-hmm. Did you talk about gluconeogenesis?
Yes, please.
And for gluconeogenesis, we said that the body will produce glucose via gluconeogenesis in two different organs. Which and which?
The liver and the kidney.
So we have the liver and we have the kidney. So we'll be having hepatic gluconeogenesis and we have renal gluconeogenesis. And I said that about 90% occur of gluconeogenesis occur in what? In the liver. That is why when a patient comes of liver impairment, and if you go to a hospital and the patient is coming with liver impairment, we will be pushing more. You'll be given exogenous glucose. This exogenous glucose will now replace what hepatic gluconeogenesis will be doing. And thus this as the kidney. As the kidney. The kidney does 10%. The kidney does 10%. So there will be renal gluconeogenesis. We also talk about what? What did we say again about the intake?
We spoke about that glycogenolysis.
So you talked about what? Glycogenolysis. So conversion of glycogen to glucose. Glycogenolysis. And this will also occur in where? This will occur in where?
The liver.
So one person is talking, the liver and where?
And the muscles.
the muscles and the brain.
The liver and the muscles. So we have hepatic glycogen and we have what? The muscle glycogen. So these are some of the ways by which glucose will be getting into the bloodstream or into the system. So for utilization, what is simply the utilization? What happens simply is that the brain will be taking the glucose, the muscles will be taking some of the glucose, other organs will be taking some of the glucose. And if we have excess, If you have excess of glucose, this excess of glucose will be converted to glycogen and stored. So that will form part of what the utilization. That will form part of the utilization. But there's something that you need to know. The brain will not need any help when the brain needs glucose. The brain will not need any help. Glucose from the bloodstream will get into the brain. There's nothing. There won't be any oxidation somewhere and it will be transported to the brain. The brain will utilize the raw glucose from the bloodstream without any help. Without any help. But the other organs will need help and will need to be transported. So you need to transport it. So what we say is that because the brain will be taking the raw glucose, we talked about these two things: obligatory, Okay. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Sorry. So when you talk about two terms, we have obligatory and we have this facultative. When you talk about obligatory means that now it's an oblige. It's obliged on the system to push glucose into what? Into the brain without any limitation. So the glucose within the blood will get straight into the brain. The brain will be using the raw glucose straight away. Will be using the raw glucose. But when you talk about the other organs, they will need help. You need to push them. You need a transporter to push glucose in there. And therefore, for the brain, glucose getting into the brain, we use the term is an obligatory. The method, we term it as an obligatory. Glucose getting into the other organs because we need a push. We need a transporter to carry them to this. So without the transporter, you cannot get glucose into the other organs like the kidney, like any organ. You need uterus. You need the transporter to push them into. Because the brain carries everything. The system depends on the brain. So the brain will not depend on anything as a limiting factor. It will not depend on anything. So the moment glucose gets into the brain, into the blood, then automatically the raw glucose in the blood will be pushed to the brain. So we term that method as obligatory, where there's no limitation. Blood getting into where the glucose will be pushed into the brain. But for the other organs, you need a transporter, and we term it as facultative, where you need something to facilitate. You need a transporter to do that. So these are the two terms. Plasma glucose getting into the brain, we term it as what? Obligatory. Please, is it clear?
Yes, please.
Good. So based upon this, when I started the diabetes, I said that lack of insulin affect what? Affect the metabolism of what? Carbohydrate. Affect the metabolism of carbohydrate, affects metabolism of amino acids and lipids. So let's see how glucose is produced. And when we have low insulin, what is the effect of insulin? What is the effect of these lipids, these carbohydrates, these amino acids when you have low insulin? What will be the effect when you have more insulin? So let's see first how the body produces glucose and the effect of low insulin and effect of high insulin in this pathway for this production. So let's see this. I don't know whether I did this, but you say I didn't do it. So this pathway of gluconeogenesis, the pathway of gluconeogenesis, that is metabolism, pathway of gluconeogenesis. Then we talk about the effects. Talked about the effects when you have low insulin, and effects when you have high insulin on this. So let me start by asking you this: what are some of the substrates that we need for gluconeogenesis? What are some of the substrates?
Amino acids.
So we have the substrate for gluconeogenesis, we have amino acids. What again? And what type of amino acids? Any example of the amino acids? Call it alanine. Amino acids such as alanine. What again about the substrate for gluconeogenesis? Want to see the pathway. What again? Hurry up. For gluconeogenesis, for the system to produce glucose, what are some of the substrates that are needed for gluconeogenesis? A class.
Lipids, fatty acids and glycerol.
So what are, tell me the substrates. I am getting to only about 2 or 3. It's not even 3. People talking. What are some of the substrates that are needed for gluconeogenesis? What are some of the substrates?
Glycerol.
So glycerol, good. So glycerol. What again? Glycerol.
He's lactate. Lactate.
Lactate. Lactate. Lactate. And what again?
Pyruvate.
Pyruvate. Pyruvate. Pyruvate. So you need amino acids. You need glycerol. You need lactate and pyruvate. And what again? And what again?
Glyceraldehyde.
So these are some of the substrates that are needed for gluconeogenesis. Then you ask yourself, where are we going to get these amino acids? Where do you get these amino acids? Where do you get this glycerol? Where do you get this lactate and pyruvate? When you know where to get it, then this will tell you about the diabetes. This will tell you. You appreciate this and you can explain. So let me draw this and use this to answer some of these questions. So let me draw this. So let me draw this to be the GI. We draw this to be the muscles. Draw this to be the adipose tissues. Draw this to be the liver. This to be the liver. So now we can get amino acids. You can get amino acids from the food that we eat. This is GI, GIT. This is the muscles. This is adipose tissues. Adipose tissues, and this is the liver. So the system will be getting amino acids from the food that we eat. The system can also get glucose from the food that we eat. Please, is it clear?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Then some of these glucose will move into where? Into the muscles. And when this glucose gets into the muscles, there will be oxidation. And this oxidation would give the muscles some energy. So oxidation of glucose within this will provide energy for them, for the muscles, for these muscles, provide energy. But listen, because we have less oxygen concentration within the muscles, the concentration within the muscles are less. Because it's less, what happens is that the oxidation that would occur within the muscles will be, we call it incomplete. There's partial oxidation. It's partial because we have less oxygen in there. This is the way God has made it, such that we can get some substrate. So in the muscles, there's low oxygen. And because there's low oxygen, this oxidation, the glucose will undergo partial oxidation. And this partial oxidation will produce two compounds, carbon compounds. So this will produce lactate. And these are 3 carbon compounds, lactate. These are 3 carbon compounds each, and pyruvate. These are the substrates. And when you combine these 3 carbon compounds, then it will give you glucose, which is 6 carbon compound. So you need this from where? From the muscles, where we'll be getting lactate and pyruvate from the partial oxidation occurring within the muscles. Again, we can also get an amino acids. We can also get the amino acids from the muscles, which is the breakdown. So there could also be a breakdown of this, of the muscles to produce, because it's made up of protein. And if you have a breakdown of muscles, then it will produce what? Amino acids. So proteins will give you the amino acids. Therefore, we can get these amino acids from the breakdown of these muscles, which is through the process called proteolysis. So this is from proteolysis. Proteolysis. Please, is it clear up to this point?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Is it clear to everybody?
Yes, please.
So in the adipose tissue, adipose tissues, this tissue is made up of or contains Tgen, which is triglyceride. So Tgen, and this Tgen is made up of the adipose tissue. And there could be a breakdown of Tgen to produce free fatty acids. Free fatty acids plus glycerol. Glycerol. A glycerol that we need as a substrate for gluconeogenesis could obtain from here, from the breakdown of Tgen. And this breakdown of Tgen is reversible. It's a reversible reaction. It means that now there could be a breakdown of Tgen to produce free fatty acids plus glycerol. There could be a breakdown to give you this. There could be a formation of TG coming from the combination of glycerol plus free fatty acids to produce what? To produce the TG. And again, glucose will be here, and there could be oxidation of glucose because the cells here, the adipose tissues, need energy, and they will use some of the glucose. So we have glucose here. Then what happens? Now we have our amino acids. We have lactic, we have pyruvate, we have this glycerol. So glycerol will move into this. Lactic and pyruvate will move into this. Glucose will also move into the liver because you need glucose to serve as energy. So amino acids will also be here. So these amino acids, lactic, pyruvate, and glycerol, will move into this side. Will move into this side. They will move into this side and initiate gluconeogenesis. And when these produce gluconeogenesis, you produce this energy, glucose. So they can get glucose from here. You can get glucose from the gluconeogenesis. Then the free fatty acids, will also move into the liver. The free fatty acids would initiate what we call ketogenesis. So the ketone bodies that will be produced will come from the free fatty acids. So free fatty acids will also move because there's a breakdown of TG giving us the free fatty acids plus the glycerol. So the free fatty acids will move into the liver to initiate the the ketogenesis. Ketones will be produced from the free fatty acids. And glycerol and co will move to initiate gluconeogenesis to also produce glucose. Do you get it, please?
No.
You don't get it?
Yes, can you repeat it again?
I should repeat where?
The whole process.
So I have started this. You couldn't say I don't understand A or B. I have talked that and you tell me you don't understand anything. What is this? Tell me the whole process. I've told you when I'm talking and you don't understand any part. You come in and you ask. For me to talk and tell me the whole, what is the whole? Tell me what you don't understand and let me go through. You cannot say the whole process. It means that when I started talking about this, you didn't understand anything. Who said the whole process? I'm going to do it with you. Who said the whole process? Who? Who said it? If you don't talk, I'll move on. Because I've told you if you don't understand anything, tell me. Here, you break me and tell me. But you let me talk hard, then after they say the whole process. What is this? Larry.
Doc.
Did you understand what I
Yes,
said?
please.
So explain to them.
Okay. So please, we are going to start from the substrates for gluconeogenesis, and then we spoke about four like main things. So we spoke about amino acids being a substrate, glycerol being a substrate. And for the amino acids, we gave alanine as an example. And then we spoke about lactate, and then we spoke about pyruvate. So we moved on to sources of like the above mentioned substrates. So Doc drew some diagrams on the board. So the first diagram is muscle. Please on the board we are moving horizontally, and then I'll come down and then go down and go to the left. So
Start
please
from
follow
the
me.
GI.
Okay, so for the GI, we looked at amino acids and then glucose. So the
So we'll be getting
diet is a
this,
source.
we'll be getting, you continue, but for the GI, you'll be taking in food, and the food from, we'll be getting amino acids and glucose from where? The food. So that is what we'll be getting from the GI. We take in food, and out of the food that we have taken, we're getting amino acids and glucose from it. Continue.
Okay, so for the muscle, we also get glucose and then amino acids. For the glucose, he said that oxidation of glucose provides energy. But because there's reduced oxygen concentration in the muscles, there's partial oxidation. So this will produce two carbon compounds, and these carbon compounds contain three carbons each. And the two carbon compounds are lactate and pyruvate. So these compounds will combine to form glucose, which is a 6-carbon containing compound. And then the second one is amino acids. So amino acids are generated from the breakdown of the muscles through a process known as proteolysis or proteolysis. Yes. And then the third organ is the adipose tissue, or the third tissue is the adipose tissue.
It means all that we are doing is to source of getting the substrate. This is all that we are doing for gluconeogenesis. So it means that the muscles, I want to teach you something. That is why I'm doing all this. It means that from what? The muscles, we can get amino acids also from the muscles. So if you are not getting the amino acids from the food, you get it from where? The muscles. And it will be a breakdown of the muscles through the proteolysis. So breaking down of muscles will give us the amino acids. Move on to the next.
Okay, so adipose tissue, we said that it contains triglycerides, which will be converted through a reversible reaction. So it will be converted to free fatty acids and glycerol. But because it's reversible, glycerol combined with fatty acids can also generate the triglycerides. So the breakdown of as already stated, is reversible. Then the next source, the next substrate that can be obtained from adipose tissue is glucose. Yeah.
I am not saying the next, I'm saying that the glucose that you can obtain from the food, adipose tissue will need some of this glucose to serve as a source of what? Energy. Glucose will be needed in the muscles to serve as a source of energy. And glucose here will be needed by the liver to serve as what? A source of energy. So this glucose can go here, because you obtain this glucose from where? From the food. And the muscles will need some of the glucose. Adipose tissue will need some of the glucose. And liver will need some of the glucose. But I'm saying that these glucose, when they get into the muscles, for the muscles to use as an energy for the muscle cells, because this area contains less oxygen. This is the way God has made it. This area contains less oxygen. What happens is that there will be partial oxidation because of the less oxygen. So the glucose will undergo partial oxidation to produce lactate and pyruvate. Lactate and pyruvate. Lactate and pyruvate. We need this as a substrate for gluconeogenesis. The things I'm talking about break down to free fatty acids and glycerol. We need it. We need a glycerol for gluconeogenesis. So this drawing that I'm doing, I just want you to know something. We are going to learn something. So here, if we are not getting glucose from here, we can, this amino acids, there could be a breakdown. There could be a breakdown of the masses via a process called proteolysis to produce the amino acids. If you are not getting glucose from here, there could be a conversion of glycogen to glucose that will be pushed into the blood. And some of this will get into the masses to produce this, to undergo partial oxidation to produce lactate and pyruvate. And this same glucose, we need the same glucose here to provide energy for adipose tissues. These breakdown that I'm talking about are coming. All these touching on the masses, touching on adipose tissue, touching on GI. It's just to get a substrate for gluconeogenesis. If I am teaching and you don't understand, please break me and tell me I don't understand this point. I don't like to talk hard and you say the whole show. What is that? So I am now going to talk about the effect of insulin on this, on the process that I'm talking about. Now, if you have low insulin, let's start with the low insulin. I want to explain something about diabetes. Let me ask you, before I touched on the low insulin, let me ask you, if you have a patient who is having diabetes, but the patient does not know that he's having diabetes, what will be the first clinical, I'm using the word clinical presentation of what are the first things that you see from the patient? Clinical presentation that you see from the patient. A patient comes. The patient is diabetic, but the patient does not know that he's diabetic. What will be the clinical sign that will point to the fact that this patient could have diabetes? Who can tell me?
Unexplained weight.
Come again.
Unexplained weight loss.
So good. Don't explain weight loss. There will be sudden, unexplained weight loss. And I'm going to use this diagram to explain why the patient will come with unexplained weight loss. Now, a diabetic will come with low insulin or no insulin. So what will be the effects when we have low insulin or no insulin? Low or no insulin? What will be the effects on these organs and gluconeogenesis when the patient comes with low or no insulin? When you have low or no insulin, what will happen is that there will be a buildup of glucose within the blood. So these are the cells. We have these cells, and these are the bloodstream. When you are talking about, these are the bloodstream. When you are talking about glucose, hyperglycemia or diabetes, we talk about hyperglycemia or diabetes within the blood, not in the cells. So there's hyperglycemia within the blood, and the glucose in the blood is not getting the chance to get into where? The cells. So the moment you talk about diabetes, it simply means that we are having glucose in the blood, not in the cells, because we need insulin to push glucose from the vessels or from the blood into where? Into the cells. We need glucose to push glucose from the blood into these cells. These are cells. A and B are the cells. And these are the blood containing what? Glucose. And without insulin, glucose cannot be pushed from here to the cells, here to the cells. It will stay in the blood. And when it stays in the blood, and the body is not, the cells are not getting the glucose, what will happen is that the system will assume that there's no glucose, because if you have glucose, the cells will get it. So if the cells are not getting glucose, what will happen? If the cells are not getting glucose, what will happen?
Hello, Doc.
Hello?
Yeah, when you're not getting glucose, the stored glucose in the muscle will be broken down to be used by the body.
Come again.
And so when you're not getting glucose, since the glucose is being stored and is stuck in the blood, the cells, the stored glucose in the muscle will be broken down to be used.
So when the cells are not getting it, then what will happen is that now the body has to produce what? The body has to produce glucose via gluconeogenesis and the conversion of glycogen to what? To glucose. Let him tell you this. When the cells are not getting glucose, listen to this and listen good. When the cells are not getting the glucose, if there's a conversion, glycogenolysis, if there's a conversion of the muscle glycogen, they will release glucose. And when they release glucose, it will get into the bloodstream. But because we don't have insulin, what will happen is that the glucose will remain in the bloodstream, not in the cells. The gluconeogenesis that will be producing will get into the bloodstream. They will not get into the cells because you don't have insulin. Please, do you get it? Do you get it?
Yes, Doc.
Yeah.
So as long as we don't have insulin, glucose will be produced via gluconeogenesis and from the stored glucose. When these are producing, please, these are the basis of diabetes. Understand it. When these are producing, when gluconeogenesis are produced, glucose are produced via gluconeogenesis and renal gluconeogenesis. When they are produced, they will get into the bloodstream before they get into the cells. So when you have low insulin or no insulin, there will be more glucose, there will be buildup of glucose. As Solomon said, glucose will be stuck within the vessels. When they are stuck within the vessels, the cells will be starving. And the system will say, let's produce what? Glucose. And if we want to produce glucose via gluconeogenesis, it means that the system will be using the muscles, its own muscles. The system will be using the adipose tissue such that the system will get substrate to produce gluconeogenesis. Please, do you get it?
Yes, please.
Please.
I don't want you to then tell me the whole show. Zoom, you'll be talking. So break me. I said this. I don't understand this. Then I explain. You break. That is why when I'm talking, I'll break and ask you, do you understand? Do you understand? But when I say, do you understand? I don't get any response. You'll not be getting any response. One or two will say this. So what I'm saying is that no insulin, I'm talking about the effect of no insulin. If you have no insulin, the cells will not be getting what? The glucose. So what it means is that if the cells are not getting glucose, the body will tell the system, the brain will tell the system, hey, produce more glucose for us because the cells are not getting it. And they'll be producing the glucose using the muscles. There'll be a muscle breakdown to get the amino acids. And there will be partial oxidation here, the glucose, to produce lactate and what? Pyruvate. And there will be this breakdown of TG to produce free fatty acids and what? Glycerol. Such that we can get these substrate for gluconate to produce more. So what it means is that if a patient doesn't know that he's having diabetes, the first sign that you would see is that there will be drastic weight loss or weight reduction. Drastic. Why is it drastic weight loss? It's drastic weight loss because the system would need glycerol from the breakdown of TG. There will be a breakdown of TG. And when you are breaking down your adipose tissues, it means you'll be losing what? Weight. Please, do you get it?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
So, low insulin means that the patient will be getting what? The patient will be getting hyperglycemia. And this hyperglycemia is in the blood. Because the cells are not getting it, now the system will be producing glucose. And listen, when a patient comes with no insulin, you'll be seeing that patient will develop complication and there will be more production of ketones. Why? Because the T gene will be producing free fatty acids. And these free fatty acids will now move into the liver to form what? Ketogenesis. And that will produce what? More ketones. And therefore, patient can develop complications as a result of no insulin, the patient having no insulin in the system to push this. And there will be continuously breakdown of the T gene such that the system will get glycerol. So as the system is getting glycerol, there will be also release of more free fatty acids from the T gene. And these free fatty acids would move into the liver to produce what? To produce the glycerol, to produce the ketone bodies. So the more you be having a breakdown of T gene as a result of low insulin, the more you be having production of ketone bodies. The patient can develop DKA as a result of what? No insulin, as a complication of diabetes. So there will be a breakdown of T gene. And the breakdown of T gene, because you are loosening fat within the adipose tissue, then patient will lose weight. There's weight loss. So the first sign that you see when the patient comes with diabetes, when the patient is not aware and the patient is not treating, first sign will be reduction of weight, drastic loss of weight as a result of breakdown of what, such that you can get glycerol for gluconeogenesis. Is that clear?
Yes, please.
What will also happen at the muscles is that, let him add this to it before I go to the muscles. Another factor that could also cause reduction of weight, because if it's MCQs and you are asking, you should know, because multiple completion, if you are being asked, all this I can ask, what are factors that could cause reduction of weight in a diabetic patient? Apart from the breakdown of TG, osmotic diuresis, note this, apart from the breakdown of TG, osmotic diuresis will also cause weight loss, because when there's a buildup of glucose within the blood, it will cause what? Osmotic diuresis. And this diuresis means that the patient will be losing fluid, and this can cause reduction. If you are losing fluid, you can reduce weight out of the fluid loss. So osmotic diuresis can cause weight reduction. Breakdown of TG also cause what? Reduction of the weight. Let him move to what? The muscles. Now, if the body is not getting amino acids from the food, it means that the body will be using its own muscles to produce the amino acids. And therefore, there will be proteolysis. And proteolysis will produce the amino acids for us to produce what? Gluconeogenesis. And this will account. If I ask you, why is it that a diabetic patient will be prone to infections? And diabetic patients are prone to infection. Give me factors that will cause diabetic patient to be prone to infection. Diabetic patient could be prone to infection via this process. If they are not getting, if there's no insulin, there'll be proteolysis, such that they will get amino acid. If there's proteolysis, it means that the building blocks of the body, you are breaking the building blocks of the body, which is the muscles, protein. And therefore, you are weakening the foundation of the system. You are weakening your muscles will become weak. So anything that affects the system, the body becomes weak. So any infection, anything could really affect. If you have a building and the foundation is weak, then at any point, if something small happens, push the buildings. Now the muscles are the building blocks. If we are breaking down the muscle to be used for gluconeogenesis, then you'll be weakening the muscles. That could account for weak immune system. Another way by which the immune system can also be weak is that now we have glucose in the blood due to lack of insulin, and glucose in the blood now will pave way for these microorganisms to thrive on in the blood, and they would cause infection because the system is weak. The protein, which is the building block, broken to be used to supply the system with glucose. But the funny aspect is that you are using the body to produce what? To produce glucose. But when the glucose is produced, the cells will not be getting it because we have no insulin. It will stuck in the blood. When it is there, we don't have insulin to push the glucose into the cells. Please, is it clear?
Yes, please.
Let me talk about situation where we have insulin. Now these are situations where we don't have insulin. Let me talk about situation where we have insulin. Where we have insulin. So when we have insulin, more insulin. So who can tell me what could happen? Now we have insulin. When you have insulin, this insulin, assuming you have exogenous insulin in the system, this insulin will be pushed. This insulin will push the glucose from the bloodstream into where? Into the cells. So now the cells will get what? The cells will be getting glucose because we have what? Insulin. The cells will be getting glucose because we have insulin. Please, do you get it?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, please.
And this, what happened next? What happens? What happens is that now in adipose tissue, there won't be any breakdown of what? Now there won't be any need for gluconeogenesis, the system to use its own muscles to produce amino acids. So now there won't be the need for now breakdown of what? The muscles, proteolysis to occur. So what will happen is now there won't be no proteolysis because we have what? Insulin. And therefore we say that insulin has anti-proteolytic, or has this property, or is an anti-proteolytic agent. When I say this, you understand? Insulin is an anti-proteolytic agent. Do you understand this?
Yes, please.
Do you understand this? Where we say that insulin is anti-proteolytic agent. Now, it will not cause the breakdown of the muscles. Rather, it will cause the buildup of what? Muscles. Now, there won't be any breakdown. If it's anti-proteolytic, now it will be helping for the buildup of what? The muscles. And therefore, we say that patient on insulin will put on weight through these two processes. It has anti-proteolytic effect. And this anti-proteolytic effect means that it will ensure that there's no breakdown of what? Muscles. There will be a buildup of muscles. Again, here in the adipose tissues, now if you have insulin, there won't be any breakdown of TG to produce free fatty acids and what? Glycerol. There will not be this. What will happen is that now if you have insulin, insulin will push that more glycerol plus fatty acids will combine to form what? To form the TG. Please, are you getting it? Now we have insulin pushing the glucose. Now there's no need for for breakdown of adipose tissue. Now there will be a formation of what? Formation. So this reverse reaction occurs. Glycerol plus free fatty acids will push to get the TG. Now there will be in adipose tissue, there will be more formation of TG, meaning that there will be a buildup of the adipose tissue. And if there's a buildup of adipose tissue, it means that the patient will put on what? Weight. Now here, the muscles, there won't be any proteolysis. There will be... Hello?
Can you kindly repeat the part of the adipose tissue buildup?
Hold on for me. Hello? Can you call me around 9? I'm going back again. I'm going back again about the TG. I'm saying that if you don't have insulin, now there will be a breakdown of free fatty acids, the TG to produce free fatty acids and glycerol. Why? If there's no insulin, this will happen because we need the glycerol as a substrate for gluconeogenesis. Now, if the system is having glucose, what will happen is that there won't be any breakdown of TG. There won't be any breakdown of TG to produce free fatty acids and what? Glycerol. Do you get it?
Yes, please.
Please, do you get it? Now, because of the fact that we don't have insulin, we are getting gluconeogenesis happening because the system needs glucose. But the system have enough glucose, but the glucose is stuck within the blood, not in the cells. And because the cells are not getting it, the brain will be telling the system, please produce glucose. The system will produce glucose. It will not get into the cells. It will be in the bloodstream. But the moment you push in glucose, what will happen is that this glucose within the bloodstream will get into the cells because the insulin will push this glucose into where? Into the cells. And therefore, if the cells are getting the glucose, there won't be any need for TG to be broken down to give you the free fatty acids and glycerol. What will happen is that now I said this is a reversible reaction, means that TG will be broken down to free fatty acids and glycerol. There could be also combination, depending upon whether you have insulin or not. There should also be a combination of glycerol plus free fatty acids to produce what? To produce the TG. Is that clear? Is it clear?
Yes, please.
Yes,
So
please.
when you have more insulin in the system, now TG will not be broken down. Now it will stop. So we say that insulin has anti-lipolytic property, or is an anti-lipolytic agent. Insulin has these properties. It has anti-lipolytic effect. It will prevent the breakdown of what? The lipid. Prevent the breakdown of what? Lipids. And therefore, if it's preventing the breakdown of lipids, meaning that it will aid in what? In the formation of the adipose tissue. Meaning this reaction, the glycerol plus free fatty acids, will now be forming the TG. Meaning there will be a buildup of TG in adipose tissue. And therefore, we see that patient on insulin will put on weight as a result of what? As a result of having these two processes, as a result of having anti-lipolytic property and anti-proteolytic property. Please, is it clear? You are still confused? Or is clear? You are still confused? Are you okay or you are confused?
Where you said there will be
Are
there
you
will be
okay?
more glycerol and fatty acid to build to cause the buildup of triglycerides. But where is the fatty acid and the glycerol coming from in the presence of the insulin to cause the buildup?
Come again. Come again. Were you asking a question? Please, were you asking a question? Somebody was talking. Who heard? Who heard her?
Can you hear me?
Huh? I don't know what is going on. Somebody was saying something. Who heard her? Was there a question or what?
Tatakura, please, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, please. I was asking that I understood what you were saying, but the part I am confused about is you were saying in the presence of insulin, there will no more be breakdown. There will no more be breakdown of triglycerides, but there will be a buildup. The glycerol and the fatty acid would cause a buildup.
I'm listening.
Of the adipose tissue. So I'm asking, in the presence of the insulin, where is the fatty acid and the glycerol coming from?
So when we're not having when we're not having when we're not having the insulin, where is the system getting the glycerol? I'm asking a question. Where is the system not getting the glycerol from? From the breakdown.
From the breakdown of triglycerides.
We have, if there's a breakdown of TG, one way is that it means there will be more free fatty acids and more glycerol in the system. Do you get it? There will be more free fatty acids. There will be more glycerol. There will be more hyperglycemia if we don't have no insulin in the system. If I say this,
yes, please.
Will you understand? I just want to understand up to this point. There wasn't any insulin. TG, breakdown of TG. So gave out this free fatty acids and glycerol. So there was now more free fatty and glycerol in the system, more hyperglycemia in the system. So we saw this, then we started giving what? Started giving the insulin. What will happen is that there will be reverse. But let me say this. Apart from this, the system produces glycerol. The system produces free fatty acids. We use that free fatty acids for other things. So enzymatic activity that goes on in the system, there's reaction, production. The liver does a lot of things. Adrenal gland does a lot of things. If you have learned about adrenal gland, you see the gland also produces a lot of things. The endocrine system produces, so all these glycerol will be produced in a different way and will be used in a different, if you are learning something, you'll be seeing that glycerol produced in a certain reaction. Free fatty acids will also be producing in a different. So how come that we are getting the TG? The TG, we are getting the TG and it's coming from somewhere. So these are in the system. The system will produce this TG and glycerol. But if the system, you don't have any problem about the system, this thing will not cause imbalance. The system will produce what it needs and be using it. So if free fatty acids produce, the liver also does that. You see, cortisol will be produced. You will be asking, why does the cortisol produce? Where does this produce? The organ, this endocrine system, does a lot. These sex hormones that we produce, where does this sex hormone produce from? It's produced from cholesterol. So when you check how the sex, you go and check how the estrogen androgens are produced. It's produced from cholesterol. So let me tell you today, those who come with erectile dysfunction, those who come, at times you have to check whether they are lipid, they have low levels of lipids. Low levels of lipids tend to affect the production of these hormones. So there's a cluster and there's a complex system. So don't tell me where are we getting the glycerol? It's produced. And when the system is using it, we don't see overdose of this. So when we don't have insulin, I told you lack of insulin affects the metabolism of fat, affects the metabolism of carbohydrates, and affects the metabolism of lipids. Now we have low insulin and it's affecting this. Look at the TG, triglycerides. Look at adipose tissue. Now there's a breakdown of adipose tissue. Under normal circumstances, you won't be getting breakdown of adipose tissue. So the free fatty acids produced somewhere will be used in some place. Cholesterol produced will be used in some place. So the system will be balanced. But when there's imbalance as a result of lack of something, then it's destabilized the system. So please, now if you don't know anything or don't understand what I'm saying, when the body was not having any insulin, there was a breakdown of TG to produce this. And as long as we don't have insulin, this TG will continue if you don't manage it. That is why there could be a sudden weight loss. And there will be more of these free fatty acids, more of these glycerol. That is why patient can develop ketoacidosis. Why? It's coming from the free fatty acids. If you don't manage it, there will be more ketoacidosis produced, more glucose will also be produced. And therefore, if you have insulin, now the glycerol and the free fatty acid produced, which is in the system, there could be a reverse. This is reversible reaction. So glycerol will combine with free fatty acids, and that will give you a TG. So when the TG are forming, then there will be a buildup of this, of the adipose tissue. And therefore, listen, if a patient is on insulin, the patient will put on weight. See those patients on insulin, they quickly put on weight. I know patients who are insulin and bodybuilders. Bodybuilders also uses what? Insulin. Just to put on what? Weight. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, please.
Is it clear to everybody?
Yes, please.
Did I talk about? I don't know. I'm asking.
Yes, please.
Did I talk about insulin secretion? Did I talk about that? Did I talk about the pancreas? Everything they were telling me no. So let me do my thing. Okay. So as we do this, please, if you get to the institution, pick cases for us. If you see any gouty arthritis case, please pick it for us. Then you can bring it for us to discuss. You can do about 20 minutes case discussion. Then you move on to, you are doing diabetes. You can pick cases on diabetes. And when you come the first 20 minutes, you can do a discussion on that, such that we can apply what we are learning. We have done heart failure. If you get any heart failure case, you pick it. We do discussion. Then you move on. So do that for me. Is it clear?
Yes.
So let's talk about
Yes, please.
Let's talk about this, the pancreas. We are talking about insulin. You talk about lack of insulin. Talk about more insulin. Talk about these insulin. And we talk about this. So let's learn about the pancreas. Because we are talking about insulin. When you take this to be the pancreas are made up of islet cells. Islet cells. The pancreas is made up of islet cells. And I'm saying that the core, when I say the core, majority of the islet cells within this, majority of the islet cells within the pancreas contains what? Contains beta cells. So the islet cells are made, the pancreas cells are made of these islet cells. And these islet cells, the core of the pancreas, making these islet cells, the core of these islet cells are the beta cells, which is responsible for the production of what? Insulin, secretion of insulin. And we have other islet cells. We have other islet cells. And these islet cells could be what? These islet cells will contain alpha cells. We have some islet cells that contains delta. And we have some islet cells that contains F cells. So the beta cells will secrete what? Insulin. Alpha cells will produce what?
Glucagon.
Alpha cells will produce glucagon. Delta cells will produce what?
Somatostatin.
Somatostatins. Delta cells will produce somatostatin. F cells will produce what? F cells will produce what? Class F cells will produce what? F cells will produce what?
Pancreatic polypeptide.
So it will take hours for you to answer because they were checking. Because of the MCQs, please, you should know this. So the F cells will secrete pancreatic polypeptide. And you should know what the polypeptides that. You should know what the polypeptides that. You should know what the somatostatin that you should know. You should know. So note this. The core contains beta cells, but there are other cells. The alpha cells, delta cells, and you have F cells. And these cells will produce pancreatic polypeptides, delta somatostatins, and alpha glucagon. These are that. So note this. For MCQ purpose, you should know. For MCQ purpose, you should know. So now let's look at this. We say that for the pancreas, the core is the beta cells. The core is the beta cells. And we know that the beta cells is supposed to produce what? Insulin. And I will ask you, So is it true that beta cells produce insulin? Is it true that beta cells produce insulin? Who can answer me? Yes or no? We have been talking about beta cells producing. Is it true that beta cells produce insulin? Plus, do you get me?
Yeah.
Is it true that they produce insulin? Why am I asking this? So
Please, I know that they produce pre-pro-insulin, which has to be converted.
So beta cells does not produce direct insulin. The beta cells will produce the pro-insulin. And when they produce the pro-insulin, they will get into the blood and there will be a cleavage. There will be a cleavage of this pro-insulin, and this will produce insulin. Produce insulin in the C-peptide. So note this, and it's important for you to note this. The pancreatic beta cells will not produce direct insulin. The pancreatic beta cells will produce pro-insulin. And this pro-insulin, there will be a cleavage. And this will produce insulin. And what? The C-peptide. This C-peptide, when it gets into the bloodstream, this C-peptide is nothing. We term it as INET. It's nothing. It's nothing in the blood. And this will be excreted by the kidneys. This is excreted by the kidneys.
Dr. Could you come again with what the C-peptide is termed as?
I am saying it's nothing in the system. So they say, what is this? What is this? What does it mean? What does it mean if you refer to C-peptide as this?
As in
Come again.
It is inactive.
It's nothing in the system. It's like a pregnant woman giving birth. The fetus will come. The fetus will come with umbilical cord. So it's the same as insulin coming with. Insulin is the fetus, and it's coming with the umbilical cord, which is the C-peptide. The ladies, when the umbilical cord comes, what do you do with it? Do you take it and make stew out of it?
No.
What do you do with it? What do you do with the umbilical cord?
It is cut off and discarded.
It is cut off and it's discarded. It's nothing again. The same as the C-peptide. When the C-peptide now is produced out of the pro-insulin, it's nothing again. So it's excreted. But we can deduce some functions for the C-peptide. And let me say this. When we have C-peptide, there's equimolar. When I say equimolar, it means that the same amount of C-peptide that are produced, the same amount of insulin that will be produced. So we term it equimolar. So you have equal amount of insulin and C-peptide produced because these two is linked. So there will be a cleavage. So if it's one molecule of insulin, there will be one molecule of C-peptide. And therefore, we can deduce some benefits. What can we say? What are the clinical importance of the C-peptide? What are the clinical importance of the C-peptide? Who can help me? What are some of the clinical importance of the C-peptide?
So since the C-peptide is released in equal amounts as insulin, it can tell you if the beta cells are producing insulin and further inform you on the type of diabetes the patient has, whether it's type 1 or type 2, depending on if insulin is being produced.
Start again. I'm asking, if I tell you, give me 3 clinical importance of C-peptide. What are the 3 clinical importance of C-peptide? Now start. Oh, I am listening. I'm saying start.
I was saying that since insulin is secreted in the same amount as C-peptide, it can tell you if the beta cells are secreting insulin, and then also help.
I want you to break it down. I'm saying give me 3 ways. So you tell me the first one.
So the first one, it can tell you the amount of insulin being produced. It can also help determine the secretory power.
Take your time.
Yes.
So, because tell us the amount of insulin that are produced. So please, do you understand this?
Yes, sir.
You understand this? So C-peptide is can tell us the amount of insulin that will be produced. Okay. B. Oh, what again?
It can also be used to determine the secretory power of the beta cells.
So it can also tell you whether your beta cells are being produced. The beta cells are working. So when you have enough of C-peptide, can tell you the secretory power. The secretory power of your beta cells. Of beta cells. C is what?
It can be used to differentiate between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes.
It can also be used to differentiate between type 1 and type 2. Type 1 and type 2. Explain to me why it could be used to differentiate between type 1 and type 2.
So in type 1, usually there's destruction of the beta cells, so there's no insulin production. But in type 2, it has to do with insulin resistance. So insulin is being released, but not in sufficient amount. So you still have insulin being produced, so it cannot differentiate. If you do the C-peptide test and then there's insulin, it shows that it's type 2.
Madam,
If there's no...
Madam, who is behind you?
Doc, please, it was
It's
from
not me.
a different student.
It was from where?
It was from a different student.
Different student. So
Yes, please. He has been muted.
Somebody is talking, then you just unmute. Okay, continue. I'm saying, why can you use the C-peptide to differentiate between this?
So I was saying that in type 1, there's usually complete destruction of the beta cells. So insulin is not being produced. And so if you have low C-peptide or C-peptide, there's no value for C-peptide, then it shows as type 1. But in type 2, there's usually insulin resistance. And so insulin is being released, but it's not in sufficient amount. So you'd have some amount of C-peptide when you do the C-peptide test.
Okay, so these are some. Any other D? Any other clinical importance? Any other clinical importance? Any other clinical importance? Mm-hmm. Come again. Okay. I'm told you said you are tired. Okay, so let's call it a day. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
So I'm told you are tired. So let's call it a day. Okay, so good night.
Good night.